I'm opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
Well, hello, everybody. Hello, movie fans. You can keep doing that. You look better than I do. Hello, everybody. This is, my name is Demetri Panos. We're here, Anatomy of a Movie, and today we're talking about Neighbors, the '1 movie of this past weekend. And meet my neighbor, Roxy Striar.
Hello, good to be here.
I got that kiss. And also handling all the technical gadgetry in the behind the curtain is Marissa Serafini.
What's up, guys? You're the wizard behind the curtain for sure.
You are the wizard.
I'm the neighbor. You can't see.
You're the next. Yeah,
I'm
you're
the
the
one
next door
behind the
neighbor.
fence.
That hopefully that we don't annoy. So today we are talking. We're going into perhaps the first comedy of the summer. R-rated comedy, Neighbors, and well, I'm gonna toss it to you.
Okay.
See what you. We'll talk about thoughts first and all that fun stuff.
So I was the perfect audience member for this movie. That's not me trying to toot my own horn. That's almost kind of an insult to myself, I believe, because I was dying throughout it. I graduated, I swear to God, today, a year ago as of today. So I'm feeling nostalgic. I'm wishing I was back in college. I did that whole Greek life thing. I'm looking at this and I'm like, life was so good. I remember these parties. It's amazing. So I was watching it just so happy. Obviously, there were flaws in the movie, but I thought it was hysterical.
Where'd you graduate from?
USC.
USC. Very good. 1 year ago today.
1 year ago today.
You're a fetus.
Yeah, my little sister, my sorority is graduating today. All my friends that were younger, they're all.
So fair to say that this movie for you, it touched you because it just brought up nostalgia. Yeah. Everything going on.
I thought it was funny, and I related to some of the moments, which I know is a weird thing to say, but I did. And their jokes totally, I don't think anything went over my head. I'm right there with them. I hope. I like to pretend that I'm still in college, so I think I'm close enough.
I get it.
You call me fetus, so No,
I get it. And it's weird because I think that in this discussion we can talk about generational sort of thing, because in a sense that's what this movie was about. It was about this couple who they're going on to a next chapter of their lives, so to speak, trying to be responsible, but yet the old nostalgia part, their college days are bringing them back in. For me, I didn't find it maybe as funny as you, and nor for the nostalgia's sake. The movie, well, it was very well marketed. I thought Universal did this great job in trying to make, in telling you this movie is really funny. Unfortunately for me, there were a couple of issues. Number one, I thought that 90% of the real funny stuff was in the trailer.
It happens a lot.
And it does, sadly, today. And unfortunately, that only left about 10% of the stuff that as I was watching the movie, that I was surprised about. That I laughed at, wholeheartedly. And we're not going to say I did not laugh out loud in this movie at times.
Right.
I just felt I'd seen, the airbag prank. I almost wish, I understand why you put it in a trailer. I almost wish it wasn't there. But then again, they went on and did it like 3 other times.
Yeah.
And it got tired for me.
Really?
A lot of that stuff got tiring to me. I found it to be very one note, one joke throughout. The other part for me too is in a comedy, I was trying for a good comedy, there's somebody you latch onto, somebody you can sympathize with, or something going. And this movie, I didn't know who to root for. I had a hard time, and that to me means they didn't know exactly where to go. Right.
I do love, though, I'm a sucker for flawed characters. I'm not into the I'm rooting for you because you're a perfect person kind of thing. Not that you're saying that. Right. Just that I thought that it was not that this was the most realistic movie, but it was more realistic in a sense that each one of these characters had a good side, bad side to them, which I really enjoyed. But I know what you're saying about the trailers. You know, when I was sitting there, I saw the new Melissa McCarthy or the new 22 Jumps, you know, what we're seeing. And I'm sitting there like, what is it, if you put all the funny jokes into a trailer, what is it that makes a movie funny anymore if you've already seen the jokes? And I think it's the dynamic between and the relationships between the people, and I really enjoyed the relationships in this movie, which is why I enjoyed the film as a whole, and thought that they played off each other well, and it was humorous for me.
Yeah, well, just, you know, and picking up off your flawed character, you know, and I think in a comedy too, you can have flawed characters and make them funny. You know, the one movie that this movie is being compared to a lot, because it's a frat house comedy, is Animal House. And I say stop, because it's an insult to Animal House. And that was my first rated R movie as a kid growing up. And, you know, the people of Delta Tau Chi are flawed characters. I mean, you know, they're not like, you know, wicked smart people, but you still sympathize with them as they're going against everything, you know, that they have to put up with at the school. You know, even a more recent rated R movie that was a hit, The Hangover. Our main characters in The Hangover aren't necessarily, you know, people we put up on a pedestal. I mean, they have some flawed characters.
And you enjoyed The Hangover?
Yeah, the first one.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
absolutely. And I think it's a much better, tighter movie, and at least had surprises where I didn't see stuff coming, and I ended up like in tears laughing when I saw the first Hangover movie.
Absolutely. I think that if you go into this movie thinking you're seeing Animal House, then that's unfortunate, because you're going to be upset when you walk out. I would more put it in the realm of The Hangover, even though I think that The Hangover is one of the best movies of its kind, in that for what it's going for. This would be in the same range, but not quite as great as or not even not quite, but not as great as The Hangover. But I still thought that it was funny. There was some, what do you call it, like poop humor to it.
Well, there was a lot. There was a lot of dick jokes, a lot of stuff, and almost again, I don't mind a good dick joke, and I don't mind a good fart joke. You know, you throw a fart in a movie, and I'm usually laughing in tears. Oh yeah, I can be juvenile like that. And when it goes on too long, like where you've just overplayed it for me, and this movie overplays a lot for me.
What was your audience like?
Well, okay, that's a great question, because I saw this movie. We were in May. I saw this movie about a month and a half ago. I started CinemaCon in Vegas. So it was predominantly, it was in Caesars. It was in the Celine Dion Forum, like where Celine Dion plays, and
you were set up to fail.
So, it's in with like a lot of exhibitor people, some studio people, and I think they may have recruited some folks. You know, I sat with my work colleagues, you know, who I admire, and I always have a good time when I watch a movie with them. You know, if the movie works, you know, the movie, you know, everybody's laughing. And I'm going to say, like, it's a big room, folks. It's where, like I said, it's where Celine Dion plays. So they really packed the house, and laughter. Comedies are great. Comedies, you know, it's like a horror movie. When you go to a comedy, laughter, you really realize how infectious it can be. So when everybody's laughing, you know, you know when a movie's working. So my audience was not I didn't see it in a regular, you know, you down the street theater. I was in sort of kind of special circumstances, but still, if the movie, you know, if the movie's funny, like the year before they showed The Heat, and everybody came out of the Heat, you know, loving that movie. This one talked to a lot of people, and, you know, for the most part, a lot of people did like it, and a lot of people, it was weird. It was sort of kind of right down the middle.
See, I
saw that was my audience.
There was about 10 people in the audience when I went, and it was very small, but it was one of the loudest theaters I've been in a very long time. People were crying and screaming, so I think that helped me a lot, because like you're saying, you know, everybody else is dying laughing, and you want to be part of it. And so I think it was a good crowd for this movie when I went, so it helped me feel like a part of the funny committee. Cool.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Neighbors. Number one, you know, is distributed by Universal. It came out May 9th. We'll talk about it. I mean, like, look, it had an opening weekend domestic gross of like $49 million. Nothing to sneeze at in this day and age. And it really overperformed to what a lot of prognosticators were saying, mid-30s. and such, and nearly anybody had it doing 40. So to do like 49,
almost
50,
yeah.
That's a good sign. Rated R comedy as well. I think that's a tribute and testament to the marketing. You know, and
the actors.
Yeah, they just did a really good job. Let's talk about the production budget on this movie, which is like the production budget was $18 million,
which is very low for what. Yeah,
extremely low.
I know.
And you know, then when you factor in your print and advertising, all in, it was $53 million.
Right, and from what I hear, a lot of the actors took major pay cuts to take this just to make it work. So
I always like to
low
hear
budget.
that.
Yeah, specifically Seth Rogen and Zac Efron took huge pay cuts, which is great because not what the hell they need the money for, but you know, if you want to make something work.
If you want to make
where are you going to pull from?
And it also shows that there's a belief. And I know Seth Rogen was a producer as well, so he's probably getting some points somewhere. Or another.
Yeah.
So you know, but I do like that. I mean, it's a testament to when, you know, these folks, they believe in something, they want to get something done, and they have it, and they create something. And I appreciate that. You know, I will say the movie didn't make me angry. That's
I love
something
when
that
you
I
say that.
You know, it didn't make me angry. I just walked out going, I thought it could have been better. So, you know, but its worldwide grosses at like 96 million worldwide. You know, we had a Rotten Tomatoes rating at 73%, and its cinema score rating was a B, which is okay.
Yeah.
You know, so it just makes me wonder, like when they were surveying, like who were they?
You're talking to me?
Well, yeah, because like who they survey, like who's coming out of the theater, and it seems like it might have been a little cross-generational, because, you know, a B means, yeah, you had a lot of people who loved it and a lot of people who were like, okay.
Yeah.
So it gets above like the C, so, you know, but it's not an A, so they have to factor in and
a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I just find all that interesting. It was #1 at the box office. You know, good for them. It was directed by Nicholas Stoller.
Right, who's got a lot under his belt. A lot of writing, a lot of directing.
And he's done comedy and drama as well.
Muppets, 5-Year Engagement, Get Into the Greek.
Yeah. He's you know, and he's very capable director. So we could talk a little bit maybe about the inception of this movie. One thing, please keep in the back of your mind, I do want to talk about casting, but we'll do that a little bit later. But, you know, I had read that, you know, Nicholas Stoller, basically, they were given a script about, you know, he was given the script by these two guys. They have their names. I do.
Yeah, it's Andrew Cohen and Brenda O'Brien.
And
Brendan O'Brien.
They gave it to Seth. They gave it to Seth Rogen, and he loved the idea, loved the concept. And I will say this: I did like the concept.
I was just going to ask you that. So just story alone, neighbors, they move, this couple, they move in the house, they have the kid, the neighbors move in, it ends up being a frat house.
Right.
You like that idea of
I like
them
the
feuding.
concept, and I'm glad you brought up story.
Okay.
You've done this show before, you know, a good handful of times. Marissa, you've been since day one, since I've joined.
And you've been here almost every single week.
I do my best. I feel sad if I can't. I really love this. It's like a drug to me. But, you know, we do our best to not we like to set ourselves apart. And when we talk about our movies, we do break it down to all of its parts. We dissect the movies into all its parts, which means we'll talk about editing. We'll talk about production values and production, and we'll talk about acting
and pre and post and what.
Yeah, and whatever information that we can impart on our listeners and amongst ourselves. I have learned so much about movies and that's a great thing about movies. When you talk about it with good folk, you can learn a lot more, and it could even sway an opinion. One other thing we do talk about, and sometimes we belabor, is story, right? And bottom line is, like, you can have the best special effects in the world in a movie. It could, like, wow you that way. It could be sort of funny. But if you don't have a good story, I don't care what you threw into it in a budget. I don't care what actor's in it. I don't care. You don't have, you know, it all comes down to story. And that's why we talk about it so much. And for me, in this case, it wasn't the concept. The concept I was all in for, because I'm like, that's clever.
So you like the story.
I like the concept.
Oh, yeah.
I like the concept of your relatively newlywed couple with their new baby going on to their new chapter of their life, and they're buying a house, they're doing all this, and then the frat house comes in next door, and they're now, as they're trying to take care of baby and trying to schedule how and when they can have sex. I love the concept, and then dealing with the partying, and they're not too far removed from that world, right, and they put that across.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great concept. To me, it was the story that started to break down.
Okay, and here's why I think it's the most important to talk about story, because right now what we're doing is we're having a dialogue, we're having a conversation, we're going back and forth, and we're talking about something that I couldn't do by myself. I wouldn't be able to come to certain realizations if I wanted to figure out technically or whatever production wise. I have the computer to Google it,
right?
So why I think anatomy of a movie, when it comes down to it, it's most important to break down the story, is because I need your help and you need mine, so that we can discuss it, as opposed to wondering what lights did they use, what camera,
right, which is fun,
which is absolutely great, but you could do that at home by yourself,
right?
You can't do that. You need help for this, so that's why we're here to talk about it.
Yeah, and again, I think it is what makes talking about movies so special. But you can geek. I love to geek out on movies, and when you talk with the right people, like I said, you can learn something, and you break down stories. And we always ask our audience to write in, because if there are certain things like we'll talk about right now regarding story elements, maybe I missed something. I don't pretend to be the be all end all. It's my opinion, and movies are so subjective,
of course.
But like I said, you came into this movie with a different attitude, with a different perspective. I don't have the same perspective as you do. So, our audience over here, they can bring in a different perspective. For me here, the story suffered because there were certain things that could have been fixed up very easily. Like, they didn't need to get into the mess, the couple. They didn't need to get into the mess that they got into if they just played it smarter and maybe a little more responsible. And
absolutely. They were equally as flawed as you would think with age they might have learned, but some of the stuff they did was almost as bad.
Right.
When you take out the pipe and you flood their place,
right.
That is straight rude. You don't.
Absolutely.
I was shocked when they went to that extent. Things like that make you realize that maybe they were bored and maybe they did need to have these tricks and play fun. I'm with you that I really liked the concept. Part of the story for me didn't fully execute what I think they were trying to do. Right. Some of the scenes were a little long. Probably my least favorite scene in the movie would be the breast milk scene with the squirt and the whatever. To me, that was like, I think you have a really nice comedy on your hands. Why do you need to add that in? That's like poopy humor that I didn't need.
And again, I'll just say, one squirt is like enough, but it went on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then he breaks the pump and whatever. I was surprised he didn't start sucking on her nipples at that point. I was like, I can't with this right now. Yeah. So to me, that was a scene that I was like, too far. I really, because of I'm telling you my background, what I enjoyed was the frat house scenes. I was like, that party, I wish I was still there. I want to live that. And also them getting the guys amped and it being about family and kind of making fun of themselves at some point, and the dynamic between those two boys, between Teddy and Pete. That's the kind of stuff I love. Also, independently, I like when we see Kelly and Mac and their relationship and being nostalgic about the past and wanting to go to this party, but knowing they have to grow up.
Right.
I didn't feel like in the end we fully fleshed out them growing up.
I agree.
They're two best friends that came into the picture, Jimmy and Paula.
Right.
I still can't quite understand their purpose for being in the film.
Yeah.
There's some scenes I'm like, I guess we couldn't have gotten to the next scene without them. But there were, I don't know, that just the whole beeline of them getting back together, didn't care about that at all.
No, I didn't.
I really just didn't care about that. But the relationships I liked, and I really thought that Kelly and Mac made a cute couple. I was rooting for them.
They did, I was rooting for them at the beginning.
Okay.
I love Rose Byrne.
Yeah.
she's just I don't.
Well, because you were a huge Bridesmaid, weren't you?
Yeah, I like Bridesmaid, but she was also in the last X-Men movie.
Yeah.
And
She's been in a lot
she's
of
been in
accents.
A lot of accents, and I guess that's sexy to me too. But I just find her attractive, and
She's funny.
She is funny, and again,
beautiful.
We talked about that in The Other Woman, which you were part of,
Right?
And I do.
You like this better
funny.
than that, though.
Yeah, Other Woman really got me. Yeah, made me.
It was
angry.
just a level above being
yeah,
angry.
Yeah. But this one, I really like Rose Byrne a lot. I guess since we're talking about acting, so to speak, I guess maybe a problem with me was in the casting. Like, picture this. What if Jason Segel played Mac instead of Seth Rogen? Right?
You had an issue with Seth Rogen being
Yeah,
cast
I
in
do. Because I think I like Seth Rogen. Very affable. Love watching him in interviews, and he gives, he's funny. He seems the kind of guy that you could have a drink with or smoke pot with, which, he's very well known for smoking a lot of pot. I find it hard to find him to be the responsible everyman. Like, he's like, if I put Jason Segel in that, Jason Segel, like, he could be the everyman, and struggling with that. With Seth Rogen, he's becoming very close to playing caricatures of Seth Rogen.
Well, what about the conversation he has with Rose being like, you're the woman, you're supposed to get me back in line, I'm supposed to run free, and you're supposed to kind of bring me back? I actually really thought that he did a really great job with this. When I first saw it, I was like, do I believe this couple? Do I think he can pull this off? And by the end, I believed he could.
Yeah, I don't know. I just had I sort of kind of had an issue. Like, if they had cast, like, even like a Bill Hader, but I was thinking Jason Segel can carry that off. He's sympathetic.
He would have been a good choice.
And he can play that kind of funny. And again, I can see the struggle. I might have been able to see the struggle more of, God, I miss those days. Do I want to? And things like that. And you could have made this like a really a smarter film. And I'll tell you, there were flashes of it for me. We're talking about scenes. My favorite scene, and again, I think it's what this movie was trying to do, is the generational thing, is the Batman.
Oh.
No, Batman.
Oh, that was
the Batman conversation.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Because
who's your Batman?
Who's your Batman?
Yeah.
And what did Zac Efron say?
Christian Bale.
And what did Seth Rogen's character say? Matt.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm Batman.
Yeah.
He was Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
So that's
absolutely
a total
that hit the nail on the head about it.
Yeah. And for me, I was like, this is a geeky conversation, number one, that I'm all over. I get it because I love Christian Bale.
And then it ran throughout the rest of the story a little bit, which was cool.
It sort of kind of did. I felt like if there was more stuff like this that you could put in there to show the generational, like, we don't have to be so, I like how they just use this huge pop culture thing, movies, and you talking about the Tim Burton's Batman, and then you talk about Chris Nolan's Batman.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Are you talking to me?
I'm talking to you. Well, and again, that's really funny too. I mean, like that party, the Robert De Niro party.
Which ends up being Al Pacino, Robert De Niro.
Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Samuel Jackson. So that was funny too.
I thought so you like those references.
I do, because to me
too.
that should have really, I know the movie tried. I felt that if they just made it smarter, that was the heart of the movie. Because the generations can coexist. You and I coexist. Right. We can talk.
Well, we both have a Batman. They just might be different Batman. And so I really like those references too. I think that movies are really smart when they borrow from other movies. It shows that you are well versed in whatever. Even when we have them watching The Office, whatever it is, like, people who watch film and television will get those references.
Absolutely.
And they'll appreciate them.
Right.
And of course you did, and I did as well. So I think that those were really great scenes. I love the Batman scene, and I'm sorry, I just have to say, I don't think I ever thought I was going to say this out loud, but I thought Zac Efron did a great job. He surprised me when finally, who was it that turns to him? It's Dave Franco turns to him and says, you're a really good actor. Right. I was like, that's what I've been thinking.
Right.
And he's obviously talking about the character, but I'm like, yes,
absolutely, yeah.
that's it. Like, he's a really good actor.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, and I think because of his performance here, I mean, it sort of makes everybody forget. I mean, it wasn't too long ago he was wrestling with street people in Skid Row in L.A. and he was getting beat up. But you know, all you need is a movie like that and a good publicist to try to make you forget about that. But he surprised me in a way. Again, in that Batman scene, again, I was like going, you know, this neighbor thing. You know, I think of myself as an audience going, you know, it could necessarily work. I mean, they have bonds. Like, they're not prudes. You know, our couple here, Mac and Kelly, they're not a prudish couple. No. You know, they went to school. They're educated. They're just older. They're just in another stage of their life.
They have sex in the kitchen.
Right.
Not prude.
Of course, yeah. And so they're not a prudish couple. And then you have the college, you know, you have your frat house and the college kids. And in that conversation, I'm going like, at that point, they didn't build them up to be like mean people or bad people or anything like that. And I was like going, hey, you know, maybe this can work, but I know I'm in a comedy. I've seen the trailer. I know it's all going to go downhill at some point, but how are we going to make it, you know, who are we going to end up rooting for? And again, that was my big problem. The couple became base, as you said, like doing things that were just not sort of kind of right, and they did the same thing. And I thought the Zac Efron character, again, my problem with his character, Teddy Sanders, became such a dick. Like, he crossed the line,
and then came back, and I was like, you didn't earn either of those things.
Exactly.
It wasn't as an actor, though. It was no. But I completely agree.
Yeah.
When we first see him kind of switch, you know, and he looks and he's like, I'm gonna kill them. Like, decides he's actually gonna, you know, and then we see all that anger and all these things that he's doing, and he becomes a really horrible person, trying to hurt this family, break them up. He says, well, I come from a happy family, so this makes me laugh, you know, as opposed to his friend who comes from a family of divorce or whatnot. I was like, how did we get to this place? And then we get 4 months later, and I'm like, how did we get to this place? And now he's standing in the Abercrombie and he's standing and he's like, hey, what's up, man? I'm like, oh, so we're cool again.
Right. Yeah, that was weird.
What happened?
It almost seemed like that was, as funny as that was, that scene was sort of funny, and it was all improv and everything. It just seemed tagged on. It literally seemed like they, you know what, we need to end this movie a different way so that maybe people feel better about characters and whatever. Right. And everything's okay.
It made me really sad for Teddy's character that he was, it was really sad because the whole time, you know, with the AT&T thing, or when he's watching Pete, and Pete's going to all these things, and all he cares about is this frat, and it's this frat. And I thought they were really setting him up for afterwards either to realize he hadn't done enough and he was unhappy, or I thought maybe he would end up being okay with Mac, and Mac would get him a job where he worked,
you know,
or
so
something like
you
that.
Said that.
But we just didn't get there.
No, we
and
didn't
he was happy with his shirt off. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because that, you know, that's a thing. But I just was like, he seemed to want more, and then it was a weird trend.
I couldn't agree with you hit the nail on the head, because for me, I was thinking of Teddy's character as well. And at first, Teddy comes off, he's totally for his frat brothers, and he gets it and stuff.
And what he does for that boy in pledging, go up to my room.
Yeah, and then when he starts talking about, hey man, we're graduating. You know, there's a life beyond this that we have to, we got to start thinking about. And dude, you're stuck here, and you got to get out of that. And I thought actually that speech too, or that conversation that happened, I was like, okay, there was a flash of brilliance. Here we go, we're back again. And I was thinking, God, if this had come perhaps even from Mac's character. So I'm like going, listen, buddy, I went to college too. I was in you know, we're more alike than you might think.
Right.
But hey, man, you gotta wise up, because frats are great and everything, but you know. And I was thinking, God, what if the adult, and then the epiphany happens to Mac, that he realizes, hey,
to Teddy, you mean?
Well, I was just thinking if Mac had that conversation.
But you're saying the epiphany happens
like if an epiphany were to happen, like, because the whole thing is trying to hold on to that past. It's like, we can still smoke weed and whatever. Well, what if he, you know, Mac as the adult has the epiphany that says, you know, I don't have to totally disregard my past. I could still, even though I have a baby, I could still smoke weed.
I wanted them to both meet each other kind of halfway, you know?
And wouldn't that have been a better movie?
Right, absolutely.
And it would have made that end.
I agree.
Better.
And the reason I needed Mac to have that conversation with him instead of Pete was because Pete, it completely got thrown aside that Pete had just slept with this guy's girlfriend, and Pete was like, I thought you were over it. And the whole time, you know, I'm thinking Pete's this really good guy, and he's sitting here having this conversation. If I was Teddy, I wouldn't have listened to a word he said. I would have been like, this is coming from the guy who slept with my girlfriend.
And again, it's so funny that you say that, because I had a very similar conversation as well. You know, and I get the whole sleeping with the girlfriend, but let's look at the circumstances as to how that happened. They were both, Pete and the girl were both heavily drugged. By whom? Who drugged them?
You mean alcohol drugged, but
alcohol and
by Kelly.
By Kelly, and Mac was pushing that along. I mean, that was their plan. So, you know, Pete sleeping with the girlfriend, I'm not entirely sure that was Pete's game plan ever, really. Like, he may have, but
he threw the winks and stuff, though.
When I don't know, they were sort of.
It was sketchy.
They were sort of kind of forced
sketchy
to go do that, and I don't know. And they were, in a way, for lack of better words, and I think it's a good word here, they were manipulated to do what they ended up doing with one another.
Yeah, this also didn't seem like the love of Teddy's life, you know? It wasn't like he was dating, you know?
Yeah, I think he would have tossed her to the curb eventually.
I'm kind of in agreement with you there, but I don't know. It just, and the point of everybody being flawed, you don't really want to take advice from somebody who just banged your girlfriend, period. You know? So I think it would have been better coming from Mac, although I did like the dynamic. I did like the relationship between Pete and Teddy, especially that end scene where Teddy's like, go, I'm going to take this for you, you know. Pete, you should do better. There were glimpses like that throughout the movie, which is what kept me going, where I was like, that's a really nice moment. It was a bunch of shorts to me, like a bunch of shorts all put together. When you put it together, it didn't tell a full story.
No.
And so I didn't exactly get what I wanted, but when I was watching it, I was like, oh, I'm into this scene. This scene is nice too. Oh, I'll take this one.
And the sum of its parts for me didn't make up the whole.
Yeah, absolutely not.
But there were glimpses of it where this could have been, like, for me, it was sort of kind of the movie that I was hoping to go into, because I like a raucous comedy. I don't mind raunchy comedies, and you know, again, we talk about it, and I don't want to belabor it, but again, the airbag joke. So we see it in the trailer, and it's hysterical, right? And then you can YouTube or break.com, you can, you know, airbag pranks and stuff. It was hysterical in the trailer. You know that it's coming up in the movie, and then it happens like 3 other times in the movie. And it's, you know, it becomes belabored, and it's not as funny because I already saw it once. I'm going to wait for it. I'll laugh, and then it's going to happen 2 more times.
If they were going to use it multiple times, I wish they had played it out till the end, you know?
Yeah.
Because we got them all 4 airbags or whatever, back to back to back, and, you know, finally, and then after we know we've released all the airbags. It could have
been a button that they forgot about, hey, whatever happened to the other airbag? And then you go to somebody, maybe they launched the kid.
Exactly, whatever it is. But I thought it was interesting after we know they announced how many airbags were missing, then they go and they find them all, and then he goes and pokes the baby's crib, which I was like, you already found all the airbags. Are you just checking to see if the baby's safe? Is this you acknowledging that the baby wasn't safe?
Right.
But if we had left one till the end of the movie, it could have been funny, but they just all played out so quick that I was like, one was good for me.
Right. And Nicholas Stoller too talks about marketing, where he was asked about marketing Neighbors and how to do this. You know, and if I had seen and he was asked, like, if I had seen the airbag joke in the theater, it would have been much better. And Nicholas Stoller goes, you know, as a director, I don't have much, and I get it. You know, he doesn't have much control over the marketing, and he even goes on to say, he goes, you put a big joke in your trailer to show your movie. You know, you want to get the audience to laugh. I understand why it's there.
Of course.
You need to right? I mean, I don't begrudge that they put it there.
It got us to the movie.
And, you know, and he just says, like, but I hate it when they blow a joke. So it's sort of kind of interesting knowing what he thinks about, you know, when you market something, a comedy, you know, and he's directing this, you know, he knows he understands you got to get you have to reach out to an audience, but he also tends to feel like, I mean, some other reviewers said it as well. When you're blowing a huge joke and you know that it's a comment, you know, he's the director, already knows that the airbag joke is played out in the movie, where the audience member, we just think it's a one-time thing, maybe.
Right.
Or actually, in the trailer, they showed 2 airbags go off in a trailer. They had 2 airbag jokes in the trailer, and he knows that plays a major part, and he knows, well, they're sort of kind of blowing it. But on the flip side, when you make $50 million,
It's
you know,
worth
it's
it.
because of
Is
the
it worth
marketing.
it? Yeah.
You know, it's because people are.
Do you think if you hadn't seen the trailer, you would have enjoyed this movie more? It
If
still
I
would have had
had-
holes. It's of course there still would have been the holes that there are, but would you have laughed more?
Yeah, probably if I hadn't seen the trailer, but that's tough for me because I see a lot of trailers. So, you know, it would have been, it's always tough to keep a movie out of my peripheral vision in one way, shape, or form. I just don't know. I mean, like I said, kudos to Universal and their marketing because they beat everybody's expectations.
Right.
And that really that's a testament to the marketing. And you were talking about like Zac Efron, and apparently Nicholas Stoller had him in mind since. And
Which I don't even know how that's possible.
I don't know.
I
mean,
it was. I thought that Zac Efron did the best. He really did a great job.
he was the biggest surprise.
Yeah, and even in the scene you're talking about, the Batman scene, I remember thinking like, yes, his eyes are glassy. He looks, but he's not like wasted. He just looked like somebody who had more going on. There was more to him. He was a little intoxicated and whatnot. I just thought he did a really awesome job.
And again, he gave hints. And again, had they played more to this, where he could have been a little more sympathetic, instead of they just went down this other dark route. Let's talk this came up to mind when we talk about a generational thing. To me, there was like, you know, when I heard there was Neighbors coming out, I said, oh, they're remaking the John Belushi Dan Aykroyd movie Neighbors. And I was like, oh, nope, that's not it.
So didn't pop into my mind.
You know, it wouldn't, but yeah. And there was a dark comedy that came out in the 80s, I believe. I think John Avildsen may have directed it.
Should I go watch it?
It's a very dark comedy. Like, and I remember even as a kid seeing that movie. I loved John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, so I had to go see it. I had to see anything that they were in. It's a wickedly dark comedy, and it wasn't what I expected. It's just a hard movie to find today. If you can find it, watch it. Okay. But it ain't. That movie was about John Belushi played a straight man in this movie, and he and his wife, they move into a new house, and then they have the darkly their neighbors. Friend of Dan Aykroyd, who's a little off. Okay. And there's a war going on between, you know, good and potentially evil. So, but this one, frat house to normal. I get the nostalgia, and you obviously get it too. It'd be interesting to see you in maybe 10 years.
And how I felt about it?
When you're in a different, when you're in a different stage, you know, part of your life, and like, how do I relate to, do I still relate to the college people, or who am I relating to now?
Well, I actually did feel like I was relating a lot to Mac and Kelly also, just in the sense that I'm very much in a place where it's time to grow up and time to move on. And I was thinking about that, but I couldn't quite get there in scenes like when they were lying in bed eating that pizza that were so lengthy and so in your face, like they were telling you, not showing you, like discussing everything they had learned, and I hadn't really seen them learn all of that.
It was a weird scene, and it played on long.
It played on very long, you know. And I was like, ooh, see, I was relating to you guys, and now I kind of feel removed. Like you guys felt like you didn't tell this story completely, so you wanted to throw a few lines in there.
Well, I felt the fight that they had too. I didn't buy the fight.
And then it's like, sorry, I'm sorry, I love you.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't, again, I'm not sure.
I thought they were going to be staging that for, like, we were going to find out that they staged that fight for the frat house so that they would think they're whatever it was, because that's how blown out of proportion I felt it was. Like, it seemed like such a great couple to all of a sudden just walk out with the kid.
Yeah, and you know, we talked about, like, their best friends.
Right.
Who we felt like, again, it was one of those things where they were sort of kind of thrown in there for I mean, I don't know, were they to show that, you know, they were a couple, they broke up, and, you know, to further showcase the stability of Seth Rogen?
Was that showcase stability?
Well, to showcase like how, like, we don't have that in our lives anymore, and I don't know.
Yeah, I guess.
I was
by
with
juxtaposition, you mean?
Yeah.
It was weird for me, especially. Okay, so not only do we have Paula, but we also have Jimmy, and not only do we have Jimmy, but we also have the boss.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll talk about the work scenes too, because yeah, the boss.
Yeah, you know, the way we open, you know, do you want to get? We should really work on this joint file, the joint, you know,
right,
and the run-on jokes with that. I felt like when we were FaceTiming with Paula, I was like, oh, I could see this was their fun friend, but then with Jimmy, and then the fact that they were a couple and divorced, I don't know. It just for me was such. I can't even call it the B story. It was like a.
Yeah, and I was wondering, is it there because perhaps this is the way Kelly and Mac, maybe that's the route that they might go down if they don't watch. I don't know. And you brought up work, and see, that's another problem I had, is that if Mac's character was written more like, I mean, he, you know, in any other job, he probably would have been fired. I mean, don't you think? I mean, like, he was a jerk to his boss.
In that job, he would have been fired.
In that job,
yeah.
I mean, it didn't appear as if he did his job.
He was high as a kite.
Right. And he never brought anything in on time. And I mean, like, I was like, you know, if you really want it, you have to show that this couple has made that leap into where they're doing their best to be responsible.
And she was a stay-at-home mom, correct?
Right. She wasn't working. And
yeah, it just wasn't the picture of a thriving modern family.
Yeah. And yeah, no. And I don't have kids. You know, married once, divorced, but never had kids. So I have a lot of people that I've worked with and have kids, but I'm curious if, like, a couple who's just recently had a kid, I mean, I can understand, like, whatever they say about having a child, they say you'll have people tell you all the time that it changes your life, but that doesn't mean anything, because you really, until you have the kid, you don't realize how much it changes your life and lifestyle. And I was sort of kind of hoping we'd get, like, if we saw that Mac was a little more responsible, you know, he's trying to keep this job because he knows he has to support. I mean, that's the thing. He didn't care about his job. And I'm like going, dude, you got a kid.
Right.
You have to be responsible because you have a wife and kid at home.
Him with this whole parenting is easy thing. Yeah.
Right. And I liked, you know, from the wife's perspective being, I got to get out. Like, I got to get out. And they captured that. I thought, okay.
Well, I thought they did, but I thought something would come to fruition that never did, which was the fact that she was sitting there. And, I mean, being a stay-at-home mom is perfectly... My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She was the hardest working woman ever. But it seemed like every time he came home from work or was leaving, she was like, oh, like... I want to, you know, and I thought maybe something was going to come up about her wanting to have a career too, her wanting him to, you know, he doesn't really like his job, and why does she have to do it? Something like that.
Yeah.
I was feeling it stirring, and then nothing, you
Nothing.
know. I guess it was just about her wanting to go out, but she never really struck me as like, you know, he's like trying to do the shrooms and stuff. She was more into talking and having a you know.
Sure.
She didn't seem like the biggest, craziest partier ever.
No. And yeah, you're right. It could have been, again, just going back to keep it down.
Keep it down.
Yeah, it's like, what's the whole thing with the head? Like, again,
I love that though.
But that's where it had, like, that's character funny.
Yeah.
And that's where she shines too, is she
Absolutely.
can be, you know. And I was just, you know, and again, I was just thinking, God, if you put her with like a Jason Segel-ish guy, and you can believe that they're responsible and they're, you know, thrown into this extraordinary situation, you know, and maybe we're going to point out that this is, instead of it being like just a frat house comedy, maybe this is like a good adult comedy that maybe an older couple can go to and go, God, I get what they're saying here, other than just having the flashes.
Yeah, we should have walked out thinking these frat boys were going to be okay because they were going to be more matured post-college, and frat wasn't everything. And this older couple was going to learn to liven up, and just because you have a kid doesn't mean you can't ever go out.
Right.
But that was definitely not what we walked out with.
No. One other scene that a lot of people are talking about, is the baby eating the condom scene on the you know, on the lawn, and then going to the doctor. Now, okay, the scene was it's one of those gross out jokes. What I find the most fascinating is the behind the scenes thing about it is that well, number one, it was the scene that Seth Rogen says that he literally was laughing until he was crying, especially when they went to the doctors. But what I love about it is, you know, how do you get a baby to eat a condom? It was basically a fruit roll up.
Amazing.
So they had, so they had the prop masters. They made a fruit roll up. But could you imagine being Seth or the director and going to I mean, there were twins.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm thinking more about the parents. Like, which twin do you subject to that?
Yeah, but how do you tell the parents? Well, in this scene, your child's going to eat what supposedly a used condom. What? Yes, Mr. and Mrs. Vargas. But no, it won't be a condom in my baby's mouth. What?
I know.
It's a fruit roll up. It's a fruit roll up.
I mean, they're not even supposed to have fruit roll ups. They're supposed to have mashed up baby, you know. I thought that, yeah, this scene has been talked about a lot. It was a weird, gross, disgusting, funny thing. The hospital, I didn't need that part.
It ran on too long.
I don't know. This is very ignorant for me to say because I am not a parent, but I feel like if I found my child eating a condom, I would be like grossed out, take it out of their mouth, and the next checkup maybe mention something.
I get why they.
I would have rushed them.
I get why they rushed to the hospital. I get that, but
you have AIDS. Is how badly this could have gone.
Right, and it was like the scene with the doctor just went on. It seemed like the doctor joking with him about it. I'm like going, okay, this is Dr. Vinny Boombots here. Like, he's like, is he a doctor or, you know?
It reminded me of Arrested Development.
Sure.
When they go to the doctor and every time the doctor says the worst case thing, but he's trying to say the best thing, whatever. I was just like, this to me is what pulls me out of the movie. When you have a doctor who says, you have AIDS, is what I could have said, you know?
Right.
Like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Oh my God, come on. So,
no, and I get it's a comedy.
Yeah, of course, but I could have done without the hospital. We could have just heard them say we had to take him to the hospital after. You know, this movie for me definitely could have been 10 minutes shorter.
Yeah, and again, to like another scene, another part too that I felt there was a great startup, there was a great introduction to it, and you paid it off, but then they continue to try to pay it off, and it was like the dick scenes, the dick jokes,
with the dildos,
the dildos, and I get it. It's like, to me that was funny. It's like, all right, you know, our pipe burst, we gotta, like, you know, how are we going to raise the funds for this? And they make the
dick in their hand.
Dick in their hands.
Dick in their hand. Dick in their hand. See, that's the kind of thing that I like that played out a little. You know, they all say it. I'm like, where is this going?
Yeah.
Like,
and where did it go?
Yeah.
And then, then it ends up like there's a fight with, like, they're using them as lightsabers. It's a cockfight.
You know, and I don't even know if I'd call this foreshadowing, but originally they crossed swords, you know, and they're peeing in the whatever, and now they're fighting with the whatever, crossing their swords. But
I like crossing the streams and Ghostbusters better. I thought that was funnier. But yeah, it just went on. Again, it just
dick jokes
sort of
were
go.
too many dick jokes for you.
Well, it wasn't that there was too many. I don't mind a funny dick joke in a movie. Like, just don't.
Not well executed.
But it's like that was like, to me, a one-note joke. It didn't really, like, and you can tell. And again, maybe if it wasn't Seth Rogen loves his dick humor.
Yeah.
If you hear him on Howard Stern, and you know, when he interviews, and again, he's a great interview. And Seth, I don't know if you ever pay attention to this show. Nothing against you. I'm just saying that we know that he loves the good dick joke, and he seems to put it in a lot of movies that he's in. If it were played by somebody else, like, because I see
like
Seth
Jason
Rogen,
Segel?
right? Well, or it's Bill Hader or something. If I see somebody else playing, like if I see Seth Rogen in a movie, I'm pretty much anticipating that there's going to be a dick joke coming down the pike, and now, like, and a dick's going to end up in another guy's mouth, and that's supposed to be funny.
Okay.
That, you know, I guess that's you know, you play it by somebody else where they're not necessarily associated with that. I don't know. Maybe that plays a little bit better. I have no
I just
idea.
thought that he did it. I thought he did a pretty good job not getting away from the stoner image, because of course he was still a stoner, but I didn't think of this as the irresponsible version of him. I thought that he well executed being more adult, but the way that his character was written as somebody who's still eating mushrooms, you know, and then still constantly doing that, I think that he was kind of set up to fail a little bit, because his character was written as such a messy kind of guy.
Very observant point. I like it.
I'll take it.
That's really and it makes that says a lot. I mean, it means it makes a lot of sense.
Not that he can't eat mushrooms, you know, but like he's got his baby next door and all that, whatever it is, and he's doing it in excess, and he's doing it even more than these, you know.
Right.
Okay, so I want to talk about my favorite scene.
Go ahead.
So when we first see in the frat and they're giving all the rules and they're all chanting and whatever, I love it. My favorite part of it was when they broke into Creed. Can you take me? I just that totally I was pissing myself for. I thought it reminded me so much of all these frat guys that I knew in college that were like, frats are everything. This is life. Like, these are your brothers, whatever. And then we see all these flashbacks. And every frat, of course, we know, thinks they invented beer pong, thinks they invented the boot and rally. I like that conversation with Pete later on.
That
where
was
he says
funny
that.
too, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And we have all these little cameos, which were awesome. We see Andy Samberg, and we see Adam. I know him from Pitch Perfect, but Modern Family, whatever. He's everywhere. We see, I'm blanking on his name, but the guy from New Girl, and he's in. I can't think of it right now. I was just trying to IMDb it while we were talking, but it's not even working. But anyway, you guys know who I'm talking about.
Right.
And I was like, I love when movies do this, you know, because they literally call up their buddies.
Yep.
Like, you know, and they're all at this point, you know, and they're like, yo, can you come here for like a half day shoot? You know, we'll just get you in. We'll get you out. They come in, they do some weird boot and rally thing, and then they leave. It's like unbelievable. It made me giggle.
And again, it to me, what makes a funny comedy is when you're sort of surprised, when you don't see something coming.
Yeah.
And when that happens, because they didn't give any of that away in the trailers. Right. And when that happens, it's like, oh, you know, and it's a fine line to me too when you do something like that, because you know, as a director, writer, but I always wonder, like, does Nick Stoller think, geez, you know, we're gonna put Andy Samberg in this? Like, does it take away from the, like, do people just stop, take themselves out of the movie and go, oh, look, that's the guy from New Girl, But you have to do it judiciously. You have to do it smartly so that it doesn't happen. So when it happens, it becomes a comedic surprise.
Absolutely.
And you laugh, and you don't take yourself so out of the movie. You go, oh, that's so and so.
Right.
And he handled it well.
I thought it was funny. I thought that it showed like what these people think of their past and the epicness of their fraternity. And I think it really set us up for a great thing which was, this is our goal. We're getting on the wall. Right. You know? Mm-hmm. And so now I was like, oh, here's what we're here to do. They're not just here to party. They're not just here, you know, they are here to throw the most epic event so they can get on the wall. Right. Which I figured would be the very last scene of the movie would be with these fireworks and all this epic thing. We would see the picture. Yeah. You know? So many things for me were like, where'd that go? Yeah. But I really enjoyed them while they lasted, but where to go?
Sure. And again, you know, to bring up Animal House, I mean, they do something very epic that would have ended up on a wall, but they did it out of, they did it, again, it was a plot point in the movie. They had just gotten thrown out of school, and we're gonna take over this parade, as the fraternity. So the end of Animal House is all that hijinks at the parade, which is great. And, I don't, to your point, things just didn't necessarily gel together the way that they could have.
This definitely didn't have a nice bow on the end. And then the one person that we haven't really talked much about is Lisa Kudrow, obviously.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to bring up ass juice.
Oh, that is also a very good point. We haven't talked about ass juice quite enough. But we could. I'm going to start with the dean.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
I love her. So seeing her on screen is always fun for me. I thought with her headlines thing, that worked for me. It just worked. And even finally, when the pop brownie thing, she's like, I'm the absolute last person. I just thought she was a nice little relief. Whenever she was on screen, I was like, oh, okay, this isn't really that relevant to the rest of the story. But, I mean, it is in terms of the strikes, but it was just a nice little I don't even want to. I can't say call it a comic relief because the rest of the thing was. But it was just a nice little funny short.
No, and she was fine. She was funny. It was almost as if they had they wanted to do like a female Dean Wormer, another Animal House. But she wasn't as she wasn't like Mr. Vernon. But I love the headlines.
Yeah, the headlines
and she was funny. And you're right. Sometimes I think she's not utilized enough in movies. She another funny actress, and she can play. She doesn't have a huge role in this, but it's somewhat pivotal.
Right, and it reminded me a little bit of the role she just played on Scandal, which she did a great job with, and it's just a different side, especially since or at least I don't know if this is how you feel about her, but most of the time when I see her, I think Phoebe. It just is the way it is. And so when she does something like this, it's so different than that. I'm like, oh yeah, like there she is.
I agree. Like there she is. We'll talk about that the ass juice character again because that was something that didn't necessarily. I don't know. It was set up in a way, and I don't know. Did you get the feeling? It was like you knew he was gonna betray them. You knew that he was gonna.
I had a problem with that because of the mixed message of the movie here. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Walking out of this, I can't tell, and maybe this is the point, whether they were trying to say frats and brotherhood are everything, or frats and brotherhood are so easily broken,
Or they just so damn mean.
Yeah.
And and he comes out and these people offer him help and it's like, hey, we can help you take them down. And
they're doing the elephant walk and like that. Yeah. Just because somebody says like, what's going on? Are you okay? That doesn't mean that he's really not. He's like, he's just such a good guy. And I was like, it was just me. And I guess everybody has to do it, and hazing's a whole process, but I just couldn't tell what stance they were taking about fraternities in this movie.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell, which I guess is the point. It is what you make it.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
So I don't know, because I disagree with the fact that after you graduate they mean nothing, because I do know, but I also disagree with the fact that they are the only thing that matters. So,
right. And from what I understand, I mean, I went to Boston University. Mm-hmm. I wasn't part of a frat, but I get the whole. I can understand the brotherhood, and I know people who are part of a frat, and they still talk to some of their frat house brothers and everything. So I understand the bonding and the friendship there. In fact, I work with the guy, great guy, and he has a son that's in college, and the funny story. We'll talk general. Okay, so his son's in college. He joined a frat house. Mm-hmm. So it's this big house on campus. So it's like the Delta Tau Chi kind of thing. And he opted to stay in the house for like a year. And then he came home one day and he goes, Dad, I don't want to leave the frat. He goes, I get it. I love the frat. He goes, but I got to get the hell out of that house.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get any work done.
Yeah.
Like, period. And I was like going, well, good for you. Good for your son for recognizing that. Now he doesn't live in the house, so to speak. It was so I was like,
it's impossible.
Yeah. He's like, I can't do it. And this is a kid who's in college. So I was sort of maybe expecting maybe that ass juice character could have been sort of kind of like, I get it. I love you guys, but Jesus Christ, I have school to do too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And we learned for knowing a lot of these characters, we got little glimpses of a lot of these characters. I felt like they could have been a little more diverse in what they were doing. And then we have, what was it, Scooby? Who do we call the one that ends up hooking up with the best friend? He ends up hooking up with Paula. I want to call him. I just think of him as being the guy.
Christopher Mintz-Plasse
character.
From Superbad.
From Superbad.
Yeah,
that's all I think of him.
Yeah, McLovin.
I was gonna call him that, but I thought that maybe I'd get torn apart for a second.
Yeah, no. I mean, another. I mean, I guess we can sort of classify him as a character actor at this point, but again, nothing that. He is so much better in other movies.
Yeah, they didn't utilize. I didn't feel like
so underutilized. And I think, and I don't know. And again, I get it. Seth Rogen said, "Hey, I got this movie and as a friend, and hey, I get to work." He might be having a hard. He does Superbad, and then he's in Kick-Ass as the villain, which is great. He's hysterical in that, but he might fall under the. He just seems to play almost the same thing. And in every movie, and that character went nowhere, and he as a comedic actor, I felt he was underutilized. He
Yeah, and same. I felt the exact same thing about I think his name was Garth, the one that was talking to the cop, and the one that ate the pop brownie. I felt like, since we got these individual scenes with these people, I was like, oh, tell me about the people who make up this frat. So I'm learning, and they were all the same, relatively.
And again, to compare to, if you look at a movie like Animal House, Otter, the president, Tim Matheson is on, Boone, James Widows as the president.
They're all such different
Bluto
characters.
Blutarski, of course, is a character. Flounder is a character.
Yeah.
And you sort of kind of know these people. And plus, they had different body types. Like, they were characters.
And we got Teddy and Pete being different characters.
Absolutely.
We definitely got that, but...
I don't felt I knew the frat brothers.
Yeah, I didn't.
Too
but
much.
Everybody else, I was like, what is this frat? Like, what makes this frat up? Is this really a frat that's like brotherhood, or are they called somebody jizz face and somebody ass juice? Like Scooby, Shaggy, jizz face, and ass juice.
Right.
Like what?
So let me ask you. Let me ask you this. You mentioned Creed. Okay, what did you think of the soundtrack of this movie?
I thought it was very current. And it kept me going, and there was never a moment where I was like, ooh, why are they doing that there? Right. So in that sense, I thought that it was great. Was it particularly original? No. Was it anything that I felt like I could have thought of it, Right. I like to learn new music. I knew every song they played just about. I say just about because maybe I did. But, all stuff that's like I find on the radio. Yeah,
and it's interesting that you say that. And I wonder, because I see it almost seems to, tell me if you feel the same way. We talk about music. It's one of the things we talk about in movies when it's source music, not like score. So this movie had a lot of source music. And as you said, it was a lot of music that you there you go, that you're aware of, you've heard on the radio. And I'm wondering if that's almost like a concerted effort by the studio to say, there's somebody out there going, hey, I have new music, put this in, it's a great song and it'll fit. And it might fit into the movie, but the studio or whoever might be so afraid to put something that's not recognizable into a movie, right, that they don't want to turn the people like you put the recognizable stuff in there, and people are more than likely. I
feel like that's not giving enough credit to the moviegoers, though. Sometimes they are so afraid to alienate anybody, or that they wouldn't know, that they don't take risks, and it was like to me, they ended this movie with a song called "Good Day," which is a Nappy Roots song, and I believe so, and that was like the least or a couple years, right. And I was like, see, for somebody who didn't know that song, that would be a nice little thing. I just felt like there was nothing that I was like, let me Shazam that, what is that? Because I want it. And at the same time, because they didn't take those risks, there was also nothing that I was like, ooh, no, that doesn't work. Yeah. So it was safe.
Yeah, it was safe.
Very safe with the music.
And for me, though, it becomes part of like even with superhero movies of like 10 years ago, like it was a big deal to get onto a soundtrack. And, I would figure, maybe why not, like if you want to sell a soundtrack, put on some new music that people might not have heard that they might really like. Absolutely. And then you can plug it for the radio. I understand that our whole music industry and the way that music is listened to has changed. But I don't know. I felt the same way that you did. I felt that the music was fine. Yeah. Brought the story along. It was party music. I get it, but it was relatively safe.
I don't think anybody walked out of there being like, that was literally the worst music to any. I don't think anybody walked out being like, oh my God, they did such a brilliant job. It just was.
Yeah, it just was for me as well. And in the whole line of these kind of movies, and what do you categorize this? Is it a frat house movie? Is it a party movie? Is it a coming into realization movie? I mean, what do you mean?
I think that conceptually, at its core, what it wanted to be and what it was trying to be was a coming of age, a coming to realize it, whatever you want to call that. Yeah. That's not what it was,
No.
though. It was absolutely a frat house party movie.
Yeah, but do you compare it to like a Project X? Do you like what do you compare it to?
I guess you could kind of compare it to a Project X. As I was saying before, it wouldn't be comparing apples and oranges to compare this to The Hangover. It wouldn't be.
No, absolutely not.
So it's just, I think it's difficult because a lot of things, this isn't like a chick flick or something that you have all those things, which is why I did think that it was a little different, a little more original. I think the best way to compare it is almost by the actors in it to their other films, like comparing this to, if you're comparing this to Seth Rogen's other films or comparing this, I guess that's how I would do it, or to Dave Franco's or to whatever it is. Maybe like that.
Yeah, because I was trying to think. I mean, it's a party movie, so do you compare it to a Project X? Not really.
Yeah,
yes.
Project X is a little.
Yeah, I don't know. Do I compare it to Bachelor Party? I know it's a little, but I was trying to figure out, and you compare it to other Seth Rogen films. So last summer, around this time, I think it was, This Is the End had come out, and I can honestly say, and again, I had my problems with This Is the End, one of it being, again, certain things ran on too long, but I thought it was a funnier movie.
I do think you compare it to that, though. I think that's exactly how you compare it,
Yeah, and I thought that was a funnier movie, and again, I will say, not all of the best gags were in the trailer. There was still a lot of things that were in that movie. Again, I felt it ran longer. But I was just trying to figure, again, the Animal House has been tossed out a lot.
Right. And that is not what you compare it to.
You can't.
Right.
You really, really can't.
See, you are very into the what am I comparing this to? And I think that's important and valid in many ways. But that's why I think that I probably enjoy more movies than you do. Not enjoy movies more, but enjoy more movies, because I walk in with such like a low not comparing it to anything, just take it for what it is. And so I thought this was funny. If I was like, oh, is this as good as this? Is this as good as this? Then no. I mean, this movie is not as good as so many movies.
Yeah, no, and I don't go. And again, the Animal House comparison to me, I didn't. Again, watching the trailers and everything, I didn't look at it that way.
Put much weight into that.
No, it was only until I started. Again, Animal House has been. If you look up a lot of articles about this movie, Animal House is mentioned in a lot of articles and things. And another movie that we didn't, I mean, can we compare it to An American Pie?
I think that's exactly the genre that it's more comparable to that. I wouldn't see this becoming an entire empire of neighbors movies, in the way that American Pie, but
sure,
so better executed over there. But I do think there was some originality to it, and the best way to compare it is with actors.
Yeah, and again, the originality for me came on, again, just I want to stress concept, and then it's the way they executed the story. For me, the concept was a smart concept. I enjoyed it because, I'm sad to say, but I'm far removed from my college years, but it doesn't mean that I don't look back at them with any kind of a fondness, and it doesn't mean that I don't, I haven't completely buttoned up either. I can, maybe I don't drink as many beers as I used to, although my gut might say otherwise, but I'm just saying I got the concept to it, and I'm like going, God, if this is done really smartly,
it could relate to a lot of people.
It could relate to a lot of people, and it can be funny.
Yeah.
And you can have slapstick comedy, and you can make, it could be really good. And I don't necessarily relate to the characters in The Hangover, although we've had those nights in Vegas in one way, shape, or form, but they were more likable. And I wanted to, what the hell is going on here? Like, where is this road taking these folks?
Right. So I'm gonna, if we're looking to place blame at all, I'm gonna say that would come from the writing and from the editing, not cutting things down where we needed them to be cut.
Yeah.
And the writing starting really strong, the story is starting strong, and then not fully developing them. You never know if it's the studio or what it actually is, so I can't actually identify who the blame is with. Not that that's the important part, but I think that the actors did a really great job.
Yeah.
And that directionally, I thought that it was exactly where it needed to be.
And, you know, what did you think about this gentleman, Brendan Truss, did the cinematography? How did you think the movie looked? I mean, I had no problems with the way that it looked at all.
I really liked the brightness of it all and the party scenes. That worked for me. So
yeah, and he's worked with, like, say, he did. It's funny, we talked about This Is the End, and he worked on that movie as well. And, you know, I felt that the movie looked fine. I thought the party scenes looked really fun. Yeah, they use a lot of black light. I read this. Did you read the same thing about it? They had to wear goggles because it hurt your eyes. And yeah, I suppose.
Funny, the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, and what they have to, like, go through and
Did you read that Zac Efron broke his hand?
Yes.
During the fight scene, and then he had an emergency surgery the next day and was like back there.
Yeah, and I was gonna make and so to test it, he took it down to Skid Row so he can get into fights with some homeless people. But yeah,
exactly. Ha ha ha. Funny.
What I think for Zac Efron, I think what it does too, though, I think for audiences and maybe maybe his agents, and maybe they can look at him and say, you know what, he's not. Maybe he has grown up, and you know what, we can put him in. We can put him in. Think about him for a comedy now, or because he doesn't have to play just dramatic or whatever.
Right. Well, even more when I was younger, I went to go see Equus on Broadway, and it was Daniel Radcliffe, and Zac Efron was supposed to take over for him. I was supposed to see Zac Efron, that whatever it was, and I was thinking, you know, in my young girl, I'm like, High School Music, that's all you can think, whatever it is, and just to me. Now, where I believe he is as an actor as opposed to back then, I feel like he has so much growth that he really does have potential to play some huge roles. And I think that it would be cutting him short if we didn't look at the talent that he had in this movie. I know that seems silly because this was just some funny movie, but I thought he really nailed it.
If he plays it smart and, you know, he has no more of those types of incidences, I mean, he could step out of his own shadow that he's cast. And to be honest, there's nothing really wrong with, I mean, he's had a career, whether it's being in like High School Musical stuff. And that's fine because he gave little girls something to swoon over, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And he's adorable.
And he wants to move on, and you can see him trying to do that. And I think that this is a good step for him. Because it's not a romantic, it's not a heavy, you know, it's not a chick flick.
Completely.
And, you know, I
think it was a really good move.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it was very smart on his part. And he was the one that you come away sort of kind of noticing. Regardless of whatever the flaws in the writing were, he was really good.
Yeah.
And James Franco's brother too,
Dave,
he seems to be making
quite a name for himself too.
You know,
I think he's very great and very talented. Yeah, I think both of them did a spot on job.
Yeah, and the Robert De Niro party scene, Nicholas Stoller talks about, is like,
that was so funny with Dave. He killed it.
Yeah, but he said he was doing that face, practicing it for such a long time that his muscles ached. His like brows was like he's like he got so into playing that.
You could tell he was into it.
It's great. And again, it's like that's not even. That's Al Pacino from that's Son of a Woman. That's not even.
Oh yeah, and I love that. And then
those jokes were funny.
What did they say to get everybody out of the house? Hooty hoo.
Hooty hoo. Hooty hoo.
I love the references. They were really great. The references in this film to other films. I like that.
Well, let me ask you. We've been talking for a little while about this. We'll start wrapping this up. So let's talk about let's just talk about it as a comedy.
Okay.
How do you think it'll last as a comedy, like later on down? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now.
It's hard to know which ones of these stick. You know, like I try to think always like something like Pineapple Express. What at the time did we think? And is it really any or whatever these random ones? I think that this won't be clearly not Animal House. I don't think it will have the longevity of an American Pie or even as a Hangover. But as something that's like if you bought it, you pull it out. Once every 2 years, pop it in, laugh a little. If you do smoke, get high, watch the movie, whatever it is, you know. I think that's pretty much the extent of it.
Yeah, I mean, you could bring up a good point. Like, it could be a quote unquote stoner movie.
Yeah.
Maybe. Not to the extent of like a Dazed and Confused or something, which is a really great movie.
Yeah, I know. I love that movie.
But yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's just it's the first comedy of the summer, and its legacy will be it was a movie that came out in 2014 when summer came out, and I don't know, years on down the line, I don't think it'll be highly revered. Or
I don't think so either, but it could surprise us because, before I decided to do Anatomy of a Movie for this film, and I hadn't seen the film yet, my roommate came home with like 10 of our friends, and they all just gone to see the movie, and they were like, we just saw the funniest movie of all time, all of them. And I was like, what was it? And they're like, Neighbors. They were all obsessed. They're like, we're going back. They went back to see it again, so.
Did you go with them?
No, I
didn't. Were they part of the 10?
No, we're not. We did not fill the whole theater. I actually went with somebody and made him sit at the opposite side of the theater so I could take notes on my phone, because how annoying is it when somebody has the light out on their phone? But he walked out and said that was the sad. He's older than I am by like 10 years, and he walked out and he said that was the saddest movie I've ever seen. And I was,
no, see, that's funny.
And I said, what? And he was like, it just made me so depressed. I can't believe it.
We should have brought him in.
Yeah, we should
I would have loved to have talked to that guy.
And interestingly enough, he was my acting coach when I was back in high school. So he thought it was really sad. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I know that right now my 10 best 23-year-old girlfriends think this is the funniest thing they've seen in years.
And does that harken to you? Like, do you say, geez, that's the best, funniest comedy ever, gets bandied about way too much?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sort of dilutes what a real good comedy is.
100%, but
because if that's the best.
I know, and I completely agree, but it's not like I'm talking my friends back from Boston who are whatever. These are people who work at WME, CAA, right. PMK, like these are people who are in the industry. So when they say something like that, I'm like, oh, I take it for some weight. That being said, I'm sure they will say that again in a month about something else.
About something.
But,
yeah.
Take it for what it is.
Well, I think we've talked neighbors, and we've made good neighbors
and now
here.
You're my neighbor.
Hey, you know what?
Nice doing business with your neighbor. I know.
I enjoyed this. Usually it's Marissa and myself. Listen, you can find us on anatomyofamovie.com. Marissa, I'm going to throw this to you. Please, all the other ways in which people can catch us at Anatomy of a Movie.
Yeah,
please share.
Absolutely. You can check us out on our website. Check out our schedule, anatomyofamovie.com. Follow us on Twitter at movieanatomy. And we have a bunch of summer dissections coming up, including a special X-Men things to look forward to about the new X-Men movie. So a bunch of dissections coming up.
And don't forget, there goes Tokyo. Go Godzilla.
Exactly.
Oh, can't wait to talk about that one.
So many fun movies coming down the line.
Thank you for engineering, Marissa. You're the best.
Thank you very much.
And good song selection here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching, listening.
Most importantly, thank you guys.
Absolutely. And please
check us out on iTunes.
Check us out. And comment. Get back to us. If you think I'm an old fogey who shouldn't be talking about neighbors, let me know.
And you think I need to grow the F up? Let me know.
But we have a good time doing this. We hope you enjoy watching it. Thank you very much, y'all. Bye.
Na.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.
Thanks for watching Anatomy of a Movie on YouTube. For more on your favorite movies, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to let us know what you think in our comment section below here. Bye.